Bienvenidos, Ushamdi, and welcome Anne Arundel Community College learners from the Spring 2023 semester taking the CTS-233 Section 400 Network Programmability course. This is the Cisco Networking Academy's DEVASC 200-901 Certification Exam Preparation course, and in this video we're going to be again focusing on Lab 3.3.11 Software Version Control with Get. And now, in Part 5, we get to, no pun intended, the real value behind the Get program, and that is branches and merging and the ability to create branches. Now, let's jump over to our virtual machine and pick up right where we left off. If I say Get branch, this is going to show me the branches that exist. And by default, we have the primary branch here. Again, I'm referring it to as the primary branch instead of master. And we know that this is the branch that we're currently in because of the asterisk that is by the name. So in other words, if I was to create a number of different branches, like let's just say I'll just do B1 and B2 and B3 and B4, and if I was to say get branch, you can see that we have multiple different branches. However, the branch I'm currently functioning in is the primary branch. Now, remember, if I say get log, if I say get log, this is going to show us all of the changes that we have made here. Now, head, think of head as just sort of like a pointer, and it's pointing to the current branch that we have here, the master B4, B3, B2, B1. Now, the file that we've been manipulating here, which is in this directory, has the name devasc.txt. And let's refresh ourselves with what is actually in that file before we start to make a whole bunch of changes. And that is these two lines right here, and that's it. So how do we create a branch, or why might you want to create a branch? And the reason that we would want to create a branch is to start to think of this in terms of you're working with a team, right? And maybe we have person one, we're going to create a main file that we're all going to be working from, and it's in that primary branch, but now I'm going to create a branch for, and actually let's use names. So we'll create a branch for Bob. We'll create a branch for Susan. We'll create a branch for Timmy, right? So now we have these branches, and when we check out or switch to those branches, that individual's work is going to be mutually exclusive from everyone else's. And we're about to see how that might work here. So the lab wants us to go ahead and create get branch feature. And here's another example. Maybe we want to add a new feature to a program that we're collaboratively working on. So I say get branch feature. So now if I say get branch with no arguments, it shows me all of the different branches that we've created, and you'll notice it gives them to you in alphabetical order. So now what we want to do is we want to switch to, right? We want to change to one of these other branches where, if you're with the team, Bob is going to work on his portion of the project, or Susan works on her portion of the project, or Timmy works on his portion of the project. Here we say get checkout and then the name of the branch we want to go to. Now, here's what's important to note is that all of those branches that I've just created, they are also going to have pointers to the they have pointers to what the primary branch was pointing to, which right now is that devasc.txt file. So again, we had the primary branch, we created this devasc.txt file, we added it to the staging area, then we committed it to the index of Get, and we saw where that was at in the .get/objects directory. If you remember, .get/objects, right? We saw all of the different versions of the file, or the checkpoints of the file, if you will. And so now all of those branches that you see here, they also know about the devasc.txt file. But watch what happens now. So we've created the feature branch. If I say get branch now, you'll notice that the asterisk here, and it's also highlighted green, right? One of the beauties of Linux here is it's going to color coordinate things for us so we know where we're at. What if I wanted to work on Susan's portion of the project? I would say git checkout Susan. And then if I say get branch, you can see that we're now in Susan's branch. What if it was Timmy who was on the system and Timmy is working, oops, sorry, I forgot the checkout there. Git checkout Timmy, right? Git branch. Now I'm in Timmy's branch, and these are mutually exclusive working areas, right? These are independent of each other, meaning what Susan is doing is not going to show up in what Timmy is doing, is not going to show up in what Bob is doing until we merge all of those things back together. So back to the lab, right? Let's go git checkout, and we're in the feature branch because we're going to add some new feature here to the devasc.txt file. So let's go ahead and do that. Remember, the devasc.txt file is right there. So let's go ahead and say echo, and I'm going to say this super feature, I'm going to change a little bit here. We're going to spice it up. This super feature was added while updating the feature branch. And we'll go all caps on that. And how about bang, bang, bang? And what are we going to do? We're going to append this to the devasc.txt file. All right, we hit enter, and you can see that it echoes everything out there. And if I was to cat devasc.txt, here it is. Oh, whoops, and it looks like I hit ls there at the end. So you can see that this super feature was added while updating the feature branch, and then it says ls in there. Again, if I wanted to clean that up, I could VI the file here. You could pull this up in VS Code if you're not comfortable with VI, and I'll save it there, right? So now when we cat devasc.txt, it has the sentence that I wanted to put there. So we see that this single file that's here in this directory has been changed. But remember, we're leveraging Git version control. And we are in a branch that is not the primary branch. We're in the feature branch because, again, I'm making some edit here because we want to add a new feature. So what do we need to do? Remember, just like the primary branch, if I was, sorry, let's do a git status here real quick though. If I say git status, what's the status of that file? Okay, well, hey, remember, Git is tracking this file because we added it. We moved it from the working directory into that sort of staging directory. And now there's an index for it because we had manipulated it in the primary branch. And so we look at this and we see, oh, okay, hey, Git recognizes, hey, you've made a change here, code red. If you want to have these changes committed to this branch of code, the feature branch, then we need to add it, right? So I could say git add dot, or I could just say git add devasc.txt. The difference being that dot is going to add every file directory that's in this directory to the staging area. Here I want to be very specific. And again, we only have one file, so the dot would have worked, but we're going to say git add devasc.txt. And then we're going to come back with our git status again, because we would expect to see that this is going to be green because it's now been moved, right? Or the pointer has been switched. It's now pointing not to the working directory, it's pointing to the staging area. And you can see some really nice messages here, right? We're on the feature branch. So I realize I'm on the feature branch. This is where we wanted to add the feature. So now let's go ahead and let's commit this feature. So git commit -m, and then we're going to say added, what do they want? The feature branch. Added while working on feature branch. We'll put it in all caps, that way it stands out. Give it a quick enter there, and you can see one file changed, one insertion. Meaning, if I was to say git log and we go all the way to the top, because remember, it's going to be at the top where we see the most recent 3, 4, 5, 6. We see the most recent change, the commit, right? So here we are, February 17th. This is UTC time. And head, right? Head is just simply a reference to where we're currently, what branch we're currently pointing at, right? And you can see here it's the feature branch for this commit. It's got the author information, and so we can see some information here. What if I was to come back and say git show? Oops, sorry, I forgot to quit out there. Let's quit out there. All right, what if I say git show? And remember, git show, if I want to learn about a specific commit, this is going to show it to me, right? And you can see here that this is just referring to the original file. This is referring to the file as it exists now, the devasc.txt, and we can see that that line of code has been added, right? In addition to these 2 lines of code that were already in the file, this line here, which is green with the plus sign, says, hey, this is what the change was. Now, easy to look at this and try to figure out what's going on, but that's exactly what we want. And so git log is showing us that this change was made to the feature branch. Git show shows me specifically what this commit is all about. Now, here's the thing. I'm in the file, right? So I'm in this directory, git intro. So let's cat devasc.txt again. And you can see, hey, the 3rd line is there. The super feature was added while updating the feature branch. But watch what happens here. Again, it's the same file, but when I say git checkout and we move back to the primary branch, right? So git branch, what branch am I in? The primary branch. It's still that same file, and I'm not sure how Q ended up in there, but we still have that file devasc.txt. I'm in the same directory, but watch what happens when I cat out the contents of that file. It does not have that 3rd line. And this is software version control. So think of the branch as like a copy of this file that we go off and we add new features to. And then when we're done, we can go ahead and save the file, commit it to the index. So it's now part of the Git version, software version control that we're using. However, we didn't mess with the original, right? And that's the entire premise behind Git software version control, is maybe there's like a shell Python program that we want to work on. And in that program, there's sections for Bob, Susan, and Timmy to work on. Well, they go off into their own branch and they work on their portion of it. And then we bring everything back together once everyone feels that they're done. And we do that and we bring it all back into that primary branch. So here I am, again, here I am in that primary branch, right? The main branch, and in fact, on Mac, you might see the word main being used. All right, so now we're going to merge all of our changes back together. And in this case, what's really happening here is we're just simply merging from the feature branch to the master branch. And it's as simple as saying git merge. Now, and this is important here, I'm in the primary branch. And what this command does, think of it in English as this. I want to merge all of the changes that I made in the feature branch into the branch I'm currently in, which is the primary branch. And that's really what this command means. So it's git merge, and you're basically saying pull all of the changes in that were made in the feature branch into the branch I'm currently in, which is my primary branch. So I'm going to go ahead and say, hit enter, and take a look. One file changed, and there was one insertion into that main branch area. Well, what do we think that might be? Let's cat out devasc.txt, and the change that we made in the feature branch has been merged into this branch, the primary branch. So now those changes and features we added are part of the main branch. And you would do the merge after you've done some testing in the feature branch to ensure that, yeah, you know what, if we add this code into our program, it's going to do exactly what we expect it to do. And that's exactly what happened here, right? And so again, if I say get branch, you can see we're still in that primary branch. Now, what we can do is when we're done with the feature branch, and this is kind of the last step here in the lab, is, you know what? Hey, we worked on the feature, we added the feature, we're ready to get rid of the feature. Get rid of the feature branch, right? We don't need to work on this anymore. So I can say get branch minus D feature. And minus D, as you might have guessed, stands for delete. And this is how we get rid of that branch. So now if I say get branch, and you can see it tells you what it was, 7936900, and that was the first part of the SHA-1 hash. You can see that that branch is gone. So if I wanted to rerun that command and say, yeah, you know what, branch 1, branch 2, branch 3, and branch 4, I didn't need those. But we still need Timmy, Susan, and Bob, because I'm about to give them something else to work on, and we're going to put that file here. We're going to move it from the working directory to the staging directory. We're going to commit it to the repo, to the get index, right? And then we can go ahead and have them branch off and work on those things, right? So how might we do that? And again, let me get rid of this. I'm not sure how this how Q got in here. Let me see if that got rid of it. Okay, good. All right, so how might you do that, right? So we're going to add a little value here, and let's go ahead and say, all right, this is going to be our new Python project.py, right? And I'm going to put the staging thing in here, and it's going to say, you know, a comment, Timmy, do this part. And then another comment down here, Susan, you fix up this part. And again, we're assuming there would be code there, or maybe I've given them a requirements list. And then Bob, I need you to do this function. And then Bob knows, and they all know what it is they're supposed to be doing. So we save the file, right? If I say get status, if I say get status, right? Take a look. Git knows right away, hey, there's a new file in this directory that is not included yet, and it wouldn't be committed. So what do? We do a git add new Python proj.py. So get status is now going to show me, hey, I've got this new file. Do we want to commit it, right? And where am I doing the commit? To the primary branch. That's where we would want to do the commit. So I'm going to go ahead and say git add, git commit minus M, and we'll put in here new Python project, and we'll put the date in here even. So we'll say 02/17/2023. And there we go. So get status is going to show everything is all clean right now. There's nothing to commit. The working tree is clean, but we know we've got this new Python project file. So when Susan logs into the server here, getting ready to work on her new project, she comes into this directory. She's going to say get checkout, right? And think of checkout. It's kind of interesting. Like you might think, oh, I'm checking a file out. Well, no, you're changing the branch, right? So I'm checking into, and think of it like you're checking out this new branch that you're going to work on. So get checkout Susan. When I say ls, you can see that we only have the devasc.txt file. So what about a get status? What does that show? It shows that there's nothing to commit. The working tree is clean. So if that's the case, where is the other file? Well, remember, we put it in the other branch. And so what we're going to see in the next video is how we would get that file here into the Susan branch. All right, well, that is going to wrap up this video tutorial on Lab 3311, Software Version Control with Git Part 5. And now we're going to step into Part 6, taking a look at merging and handling conflicts, as well as trying to figure out what just happened there with Susan. How do we get that file? And how would Bob and Timmy get that file as well? As always, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.